This meeting is being recorded.
Hello, and welcome to Tea with Halo, the podcast of the Enchanted Academy. I am Halo Quinn. I am a pagan author, a teacher of magic, a storyteller, and a practicing witch. I started this podcast because I like having interesting conversations with interesting people, with other magical folk. And today I am very excited to actually be able to introduce you or reintroduce you to a dear friend and colleague, Sef Salem. And I'm sure you'll hear about some of the projects that we do together throughout the course of this conversation. But for the moment, I would like to let Sef introduce himself.
Hello, I am Sef Salem, as noted. I have kind of subverted the entire affair by drinking coffee rather than tea, so I apologise in advance. But as the token eldritch occultist, I feel it's only right. I have been practicing magic for getting on for 25, 30 years now. I am very happy to be a co-founder of Star Club with Dr. Quinn, your normal scheduled host. But I also run the Visible College, which sprang up off the back of the Glastonbury Occult Conference, which I ran from 2014 to 19. And I'm very happy I'm back on the committee, led by Dr. Liz Williams to this day. So mainly I focus on running occult events for the community, bringing people together, facilitating and hosting those at a retreat venue in South Gloucestershire, and generally going around talking about angels, Thelema, chaos magic, Star Club, PGM, anything I can get away with really, and don't try not to get booed off the stage.
Yeah, so Star Club is actually an absolute delight to run with you, and that's been about 6 years now that we've been doing that. And
Yeah, I think this month.
yeah, it must be about now. Oh, how cool. And yeah, so Star Club is the tagline is making magicians in the UK. Do you want to talk about like what does it actually mean to make a magician?
Well, that's the secret sauce, isn't it? That's our special ingredient. So Star Club is a narco-syndicalist approach to a lodge or a coven. It's the idea that if you bring magical practitioners together and they perform a set of workings for a particular result, they can then disperse and choose to either go off to other projects or come back. But to do that within a framework which creates a reproducible standard of achieving those results. However, during the course of the process, what happens is that by engaging in a course of study and by performing their daily or regular practice, then they start to actually develop their own capabilities spontaneously, as well as just performing the rituals that we set before them. So while they are doing magic, they are also becoming magicians. And we're now on our fifth iteration of the cycle, which, as I've talked about elsewhere, was never really supposed to be a training system. It was supposed to be me and a bunch of weird mates getting together and doing cool, spooky things. But serendipity 6 years ago provided us with a bunch of people in Bristol who wanted to learn magic. And it happened to coincide with me wanting to run this and us working together magically and seeing where we came out. And it's gone pretty well so far.
I really love the way that it's unfolded and the fact that you can really see where the process of doing magic means that you become magic.
Yeah.
It's just this beautiful thing to watch people go through that process. And quite a few people already have a magical practice, but doing it intensely for that period of time with others, all focused together. Yeah, can be do magic to be magic.
Yeah, absolutely. That's our new tagline. Why not?
Yeah, why not?
We need
I
more
love.
marketing.
Sorry.
We need more marketing.
Yes, so if you want to do magic to be magic, come and check out Star Club. Our next cycle will start early 2026. Get in while it's
Whether I
hot.
like it or not. Yeah.
So yeah, that piece. So you mentioned in there the daily practice or regular practice, and this is something where you and I, our difference in approaches really works to kind of complement each other, because. So I'm just going to comment on this. It's that thing of we set daily practice for people. It's like, do this every day, and you'll build up these skills, and you'll learn it properly. And I have ADHD. I am not a daily kind of person. Doing the same thing every day is really, really tough for me. On top of like my neurotype, I'm also the kind of person where my schedule, it changes so much. And so I used to really struggle with that concept of daily practice. I can see the benefit of it. And see why you do it. Why would you lift weights every day? Well, why do you eat every day? Well, sometimes I forget to do that as well. So it's that, like, you can see why it's important. And this is why we kind of came to that point of sharing with the students. It's like, ideally it's daily, but if it's regular, then you're still getting some benefits from it.
Yeah, I mean, 10 minutes 3 times a week is better than 2 hours on a Sunday. Of course, 10 minutes 7 days a week is ideal, but not everyone can do that.
Yeah. And that thing of actually doing the magic that you do is better than the perfect magic that you don't. Yeah. So what does your daily practice look like, Sef?
My daily practice is interesting because I go through phases which are more overt and more noetic, as Dr. Bob Plymouth would say. So I tend to, mostly weekdays, either do my, what we have adopted as the Star Club practice, which is an LBRP, middle pillar, planetary prayers, or planetary intelligence prayers and hymns, plus divination and sigil magic. Because the whole point of the Star Club daily practice is it's modular, so we teach 8 different types of magic within the framework, and that has a component bolt-on practice in the daily practice. So I kind of pick and mix through some of those, and that can be reflexive. It's usually aligned to planetary magic with the days of the week, planetary hours and days. Then other days when I can, I'll be working out as well in the mornings. So I tend to do intermittent fasting. So I'll fast until lunch, work out through that period, and really try and beast myself. And I have physiotherapy that I do. So sometimes I will do things noetically rather than waving a wand around in a temple. I'll be doing it as I'm, doing breathing exercises or, physiotherapy stuff. And occasionally, depending on like the ebb and flow, like usually during the actual 9 months of the Star Club cycle itself, I'll mostly stick to that. But around bigger things like OTO initiations or the Thelemic Symposium, or particular sets of workings that I do with Babalon, which is my patron deity. Well, I suppose patron is really the wrong word. I have a devotional relationship with Babalon, let's put it that way. Then it'll switch across into more of a Thelemic daily practice, which looks like Liber Resh, Liber Reguli, other devotional practices, usually with Hannah, my partner and priestess. So we'll work together between us while doing those workings, and that has a different flavor. But I think something that we were discussing beforehand, and we'll come back to, is that a daily practice, for my money, consists of 3 parts, which is something inside, something outside, and then something in the middle. So you're something in the middle in your classic Western mystery tradition, Golden Dawn or Star Club flavor is your LBRP, right? Because it sets a boundary. Something inside can easily be your pranayama, your mantra yoga. We use the 4 breaths of the 4 worlds on the tree of life, so that creates a body of light. in the pranayama practice. And then something outside would be the middle pillar, which kind of brings that, brings that connection through. But you can also do that in different ways. So in a Thelemic sense, you have Liber Resh, which recognizes the outside, and Liber Reguli, which is a combined pentagram ritual like the Star Ruby, but also incorporates that that internal work and that connection as well. But yeah, we can come back to that.
So given that at least half of my listeners won't know what all of those different rituals that you've just mentioned are, I'm just going to sort of summarize some of them, because I used to find this when I was like delving into conversations with people who were in very different areas of magic, that they'd say all these things like Liber Resh and Liber Reguli and a Star of Ruby thing and a this and that and the other, and I'd go, I don't know what those words are referring to. I don't know what they apply to. And then once it's explained to you and you see the process, or you go through the process, quite often you'll recognize, oh, this is doing what this part of my practice does. And I love seeing those connections. So what is the purpose of an LBRP? What do those letters mean? I know, but I'd like to hear you explain. Yeah.
Oh, I know. Okay, so LBRP is the Lesser Banishing Ritual of the Pentagram. And this is described as a foundational practice because it operates on 3 levels. And that is on yourself, on the space that you practice in, and in the universe as a whole. Okay, so it kind of puts the practitioner or magician in the role of somebody who is acting on behalf of themselves and their space and the universe. And we kind of stray into like the moralistic considerations of Arthur Edward Waite, when he's talking about, white magic and black magic, mystical versus magical work. But ultimately, an LBRP opens up the self, the space, and the universe, clears what you don't want out of that, balances the forces within it, and then closes it back down to make it nice and tight. So I usually, and you're sick of hearing this over the last few years, use the analogy of a car engine, that you pop the bonnet, you see what the state of it is, you clear away any dirt and detritus, trapped leaves or oil leaks. Then you tune it up by putting some Red-X in, making sure the oil's full, the windscreen wash is all right, the brake fluid's at the right level. And then you close it back down again. And that helps to maintain what you're operating in. And of course, it's not really a car, it's you, right? It's your aura, it's your body of light, your energetic self. So the LBRP is useful for that. And we adapt it in Star Club to make it more balanced on an elemental basis. But most people will be familiar with just waving the earth banishing pentagrams around. However, Star Club operates on a run before you can walk policy, and everyone catches up eventually and has a great time. So yeah, it's no problems there.
Yeah.
So that's the LBRP. And yes, occultists generally are extremely guilty of using jargon. It's true. We love an acronym. We love a Liber this, we Liber that. We love referencing books by initials, like, oh yes, well, if you see chapter 14 of MITP and you compare it with Liber 194, then what you'll find is, yeah, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and that's something that I've found really fun is that there are these references to go and read this like string of letters, and I'm like, okay, so first I have to work out what those letters are referring to. Then I have to work out where it was. Oh, and then I find out, oh, of course, it was written by Crowley, right?
Yeah. Well, it's not just Thelemic groups that do this.
No, of course not.
So, well, no, I just want an opportunity to throw shade at others. So you have, the OTM and the AA who have, a syllabus of all this sort of stuff. What people don't realise is that most of Crowley's work was written under the seal of the AA. So it's all about the mystical school of attainment rather than OTO, which is a Masonic derived initiatory structure. So actually quite a lot of that in OTO. A lot of Crowley's work for the AA doesn't apply that much to OTO.
So can I just, have I got it right if I say the OTO and the AA are both Thelemic magical orders? The OTO is more structured, like in terms of the ritual processes. It's more of a sort of a structure that you kind of go up through, like temple space, whereas the AA is more kind of connecting in a more mystical sense. There's a group of spirits that are explicitly like known about within it that guide you through it, and so it's more, that's the kind of the difference between the two. Does that sound about right as a summary?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, it's
Oversimplifying, obviously.
no, well, it's not this oversimplifying. It's a very difficult concept to explain, never mind to grasp. You're broadly right. The difference is that OTO is a temporal social structure, and AA is a direct transmission of attainment as a mystery school between student and teacher within various lineages. So it's closer to the Golden Dawn in that respect. It is modelled off the Golden Dawn schema, and Liber 777, which is Crowley's big book of reference tables, not all of which are that accurate, was Crowley saying screw you to MacGregor Mathers by publishing the secret Golden Dawn list of correspondences. So, thus has it ever been that occultists have a big ego and like putting each other's noses out of joint, such is life. The thing about OTO and AA is they kind of wrap around like a helix. So there are different paths. As one person said to me recently about alchemy, there's the wet path and the dry path. There's the slow and steady, and there's the inflaming yourself like a phoenix. So where OTO and AA cross over, then they kind of meet at certain junctures, but they have explicitly different purposes. However, both lead to certain steps of magical capability or enlightenment or mystical progress. They're just expressed in different ways. It's horses for courses, horses for Thelemic courses, and that course tends to be on a hexagram.
Yeah.
So the OTO and the AA do that with Crowley's Libers. So you get a list of study guides saying like, read this, and this. Here's a bunch of essays. This is your glossary of like what this means and this means and that means. But other groups and organisations do that too. So the IoT has a course of reading which is largely modelled on Pete Carroll being the iterative chaos Crowley. So it'll reference this text in Liber Non Psychonaut or Apophenia or Liber NMM or KKK and stuff like that. So I think that one of the main differences between the OTO and the IoT, and I say that with a lot of affection for the IoT, is that they don't pretend they're taking themselves seriously when they do it, but they take the magic very seriously, which is a really good way to be, I think.
Yeah, that's something that I encountered a lot when I came into reclaiming, was this concept of reverent irreverence.
Yeah.
It's like the magic is important, the process is important, but this is we're doing very silly things, and it's okay that it's silly.
Yeah, it really is. And I think you disappear up the event horizon of your own backside if you commit too hard to taking everything seriously about your magical practice.
Yeah. So how do you bring in a bit of that irreverence in your own practice and space?
I mean, I usually start by assuming that I've annoyed some deity or entity before I've started. I might be the master of my own universe, but you'll still need to do the dishes and tidy your bedroom, and your gods or spirits might notice when you haven't, either in a literal or metaphorical sense. So there's always room for improvement. I think that's the first step. Never, you're who was it was saying, I can't remember who the quote is from now. It's not Tony Robbins, but if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. right?
Mm-hmm.
And that goes with your spirit work as well, and your contact with other than human entities, higher dimensional beings, your HGA, the flying spaghetti monster, and Pope Pete when he's down the pub, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's the most important thing, is to not take yourself too seriously by dint of realizing that every one of us is full of foibles, and also you don't know what you don't know. So, if you think you have already learned everything there is to know about magic, then why would a spirit or deity bother to speak to you?
That's a really, really important thing to remember. Yeah. Like, if you've already learned it all, why are you still here? And why would they bother talking to you if you're not going to listen? Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I like that. So can you tell us a bit about Babalon as your what's the word, if you're a devotee, what would be I want to find a word that's devoted. Your
Devotion deity, I suppose.
Sorry?
Devoted deity.
Yeah. It isn't that word anyway. So as one of your beloved deities,
Mm-hmm.
can you tell us a bit about Babalon?
Sure. Babalon is everything you thought you could hide from yourself.
Mm.
All the parts of yourself that you want your partner to see in you, but without the ability to hide that which you don't want your partner to see in you. It is a frank and brutal and searingly honest conversation with the universe in its most fundamental terms. Because, it's easy to kind of like have the pin-up redhead, burlesque dancer Babalon, and say like, "Hey, it's the good time goddess," but those good times are predicated on an equal amount of bad times, on an equal amount of honesty about the universe. And we all incarnated on this planet through at least two people having sex, right? And we're all going to die, as did, by the end of that point, usually the people that gave birth to us. So these are fundamentally inextricable concepts. It's not just about, booze and floozies. It's about the functions of incarnation itself. Which also means that all of the corollary functions of being incarnate are included. So that is time, that is relationality, that is magical or mystical attainment. If you believe in the concept of the will, or one will, or your will, or true will, or perfect will, or any of the other iterations, the idea that there is something you are here to do, then Babalon is the facilitator of that incarnation and is disappointed if you don't get on with it. So for me, that devotional relationship, ask not what your deity can do for you, ask what you ought to be doing for your deity, especially if you've not. So, I've had various stages in my life. We're talking about Star Club. Nearly 3 years ago now, I applied for a job which would have been so exciting, but also time consuming, that I would have had to call it a day for Star Club, and we would have packed it in, and that would have been the end of it at cycle 3. Mm. And I was very roundly not only rejected from that job, despite passing all the interviews and stuff, but it didn't work out. I was then put in a position where I had no choice but to carry on doing magic and to be a full-time magician. And that's how things started, with a devotional 49-day working for Babalon based off Jack Parsons' experiences, which started on a Tuesday, and 7 Tuesdays later, I found myself unexpectedly in the south of France taking the Oath of the Abyss. And then it carried on being weird every 7 weeks after that, which I now call my Abyss Adversary. And that's in my calendar. She comes up on my phone. I'm like, oh God, what now will happen this week? And sure enough, the most recent one was a couple of weeks ago, and it's led to a whole bunch of other exciting stuff lining up, but not usually without some measure of holy dread and terror. But that's the point, isn't it? Like, if you want to go around doing podcasts saying, like, you're a magician with 20 odd years experience and this, that, and the other, then if your magic isn't terrifying, if it's not awe-inspiring, if it's not of a cosmic, supernatural, preternatural level, then you might as well just be sticking your finger up your nose. Like, what's the point in doing all this magical practice if you never progress beyond, like, a bit here and a bit there, and doing some rituals. So I, the daily practice, isn't every day. It isn't physically every day, that's for sure. It's considerate though, but I now feel like I'm an always-on magician. Excuse me. And if I even for a second think that I'm not an always-on magician, then something comes out of left field to tell me that no, there's work to be done, and there's no getting off this right now.
Yeah.
So to come back to the point, that's the relationship with Babalon, because you signed up to the ride before you became incarnate. And if you choose, you don't have to, but if you choose to work with Babalon, she will absolutely remind you of this fact. And as you progress, you will find it impossible to do anything which is not in accordance with your will. So Crowley in Magic Without Tears wrote, as a young man, I could perform miracles, I could manifest money, cure the sick, heal the lame. Now, however many years later, I am only able to do that which is 100% in accordance with my will. I'm misquoting because the book's in the next room, but that's the gist of it. And that's what you find through Babalon. You might not be able to do everything that you thought you were here to do, but you will definitely be only able to do that which you really are here to do.
Mm. There's so much in what you've just said. Thank you. So I've actually been working with Babalon to some degree or another, and I worked it out. It's been almost 10 years since I explicitly started working with her, and in that time, parts of my life that were absolutely not right for me imploded, fell apart. I went through all sorts of different changes and different spaces in my life. But while it's that thing that magic is change, magic is transformation, but I asked for it. I actually asked for it. I'm like, I want my life to be better. I want to be whole. I want to be doing what I am here to do. Help me. And she and the other magic and spirits and beings that I work with went, okay. And the more I fought those things, the harder it got. And when I fought against what they were helping me with, and I fought against what I was supposed to be doing, it got harder and was more challenging. And when I finally got through them, everything opened up. And I live by the sea in a beautiful, beautiful place. I have a partner who loves me. I have work that I adore. I've co-founded a magical training group / modern magical order that it's become, that where we get to work magic with fun people. So many things about my life is so good. I finished my doctorate. I couldn't actually finish it in the middle of everything. Yeah. So and I learned things about myself in the process. And so this is that thing that if you choose that path and you ask for it, you commit to it, if there are things that you've not been facing, as you say, those things that you'd rather hide from yourself, those things that you're like, I'm just going to stay here because it's easier to stay here than it is to change this thing that is killing me, right? Then you get shaken up if you ask for it. But you can also ask not to. You can also ask to go at a pace that works for you. Not everyone that practices magic has to be a full-time magician or a full-time witch or a full-time whatever. Not everyone that practices magic, engages with it, has to go through those deep, intense transformations all of the time, because that's not actually everyone's path.
No.
But for folks like yourself who have gone, no, actually, this is what I'm here to do. Those intense transformations, and like myself, like those intense transformations in order to become all that we can be. Well, all that we can be and all that we're supposed to be is weird and odd and not comfortable.
Yeah.
But joyful. Was it you said?
Absolutely.
Awe-inspiring. Everything is awe-inspiring.
It is. Yes. I mean, we've had a funny path through, especially with Star Club and the students that we've had come through, and watching their transformations and their personal journeys has been absolutely wonderful. Seeing where people have gotten to, 3, 4, 5 years later, but even just a year later, we have people who have changed careers, changed paths, found love and relationships. We've had our first Star Club baby, and we've had such an experience seeing people become magicians, whatever that looks like for them. Not always with the, cataclysmically exciting adventures that you and I have been on, but it's profoundly moving to think that we've had a hand in helping with that. And I still have trouble describing myself as a teacher. I like to facilitate people's learning because it's really difficult to teach these things. Somebody once said, the real secrets are incommunicable, right?
Yeah.
But by making people magicians, they can get to those for themselves. And it's a great spectator sport as well.
I like to think I teach skills and then people apply those skills, and that's where the magic happens.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, like my books are often quite small because they're about opening doors. And I like in Gods and Goddesses of Wales, it's opening doors and making an introduction. And then it's up to you what you do with the beings that you meet, or if you step through those doors. I've just gone, here's the door, here's the key. Like, this is how you open it. So
portals for pagans, in fact.
Sorry?
Portals for pagans, in fact.
Exactly. And when I talked to Rachel about this in the first episode, I was talking about how much I enjoy that these books are. They are exactly what they say. They are portals. They are stepping stones. They're ways in. And I just wanted to mention, because I think this is a beautiful illustration, and I don't think that you'll mind me bringing it up. So for quite a few years, like over the time that I've known you, for most of that time, you've been like, I must write a book. I've got to write a book. I've got all these books in me that I've got to get out. And it was, what was it, last year when we were chatting with Dr. Bob Plummer, and it suddenly sort of dawned on you that, oh, no, wait, it isn't my will to write a book. it's my will to share in other ways, to hold these events, to make spaces, to run courses.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, and I think that's just such a beautiful illustration. Like, both of us are magicians, right? Both of us are working magic. Both of us are trying our best and hopefully going some way towards succeeding in doing our will and sharing magic with the world. But where I write books, you host retreats. Right?
Yeah, I just find that the best learning I have ever done has been in the company of other magicians.
Mm-hmm.
It's that logarithmic scale that the more magicians you get in the same room, the more likely you are to have an argument and drama, obviously. But the much higher the success of the probability of having a good conversation that you can learn from, and having more conversations that you can learn from, because there are more voices involved when you it's that I keep throwing quotes out, two people can get more done in a room than 50 unless you need to move a piano. Right? And sometimes the occult is the piano. Sometimes we have to have a healthy debate and discussion across lots of different perspectives to get to the root of what actually needs doing, what actually can be done, how to do it sensibly and ethically, and how to, make our practice better. And that doesn't come from just typing away on the internet. It comes from meeting people and having genuine connections. Now, those genuine connections can be online. That can be through communities, Discord servers, and even Facebook groups. But when you're in the pub with people, when you're at a panel with a bunch of speakers, when you're going to events with one or more instructors and genuine aspirants and seekers, then you find just how much you can learn from everybody else. And the other thing, right, this is what's really important, I think, is that you don't know who you're going to learn from. So example of this, I went to the occult retreat in Italy last October. I was going as a punter with Hannah for a nice time. 10 days notice, I got bumped into speaking to fill in for some teachers that couldn't make it. So apart from the massive stress of having 10 days to prepare, 2-hour lecture, an hour and a half workshop, a ritual, and a meditation as well, which is fine because that's any Tuesday for me, right? I then had to kind of step into this weird place where I was expecting to go just as a punter and hang out and stuff. So you turn up, and because it was short notice, everyone's expecting somebody else. I'm like, hello, now I'm me. And you then have this kind of little bit of friction as to oh, who's this dude, right? But when you get talking, it became less weird as the week went on, when I realized that so many of the other people there are leaders in their fields. So I'm going to give a little shout out to JD Kelly, mutual friend of ours, which I only realized the other week at David's retreat, who runs the Astromagia events up in Aberdeen and online. And we ended up chatting on the first day, because the opening event was a planetary magic ritual where you go through the 7 spheres, led by Sabrina Moncini, who is an absolutely incredible astrologer, genuinely so learned and thorough in her approach and knowledge. Cannot be faulted. One of the best people I've ever met on that. So JD and I and Hannah and Coral from the IoT, we ended up going through these sort of things together, and we just naturally found our way into some of the practices. So because we use the Orphic Hymns and Star Club, and Hannah was aware of that, and it all came together nicely, and we got chatting, and yeah, and then oh yeah, this guy really knows his stuff about this, and then this other person really knows their stuff about that, and so you come to realize that the community itself is, you know, bountiful in knowledge and experience that you wouldn't have found out if you didn't just hang out and have a chat or go to some of the same classes together, or you know, bunk off from the same classes together, right? Because the, you know, the cracks are where the light gets in.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And we don't know from being so far away that you can only see the ideal shape, that when you get up close there's more to it, and that granularity and that texture makes all the difference, and that's where you can really, you know, get stuck into it.
Yeah, there's a wonderful lady who's part of the Enchanted Academy community, and she's 86, and she's only, like in her words, she's only a real beginner. She's only been practicing and part of the pagan community for the last 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
And so she sits and she just listens and listens and listens and listens. And I'm there going, but you have so much life experience before that. And you have 8 years of practice and learning at this point, which feels like a very short time to you. And when she starts speaking, she starts sharing things from her life, from the things that she's been doing. Like it's these little nuggets of wisdom. But when she turns up, she's like, oh, I'm a complete beginner. And it's really interesting that when you get in that space with people and you get your first impressions, or they tell you, oh, I don't know anything, and then they start talking. And even if, what's that, 70% of their life they weren't engaged in it, and it's only been for them the tiniest recent percentage, however old they are, if it's 6 months or 6 years or whatever, you know, all of the things that they've been through in their life has taught them so much, has so much experience, has so much in it to learn from. So even people who are beginners, or people who tell you they're beginners, or people who still feel very new to it, you can learn a lot from people just because they're people.
Yeah, well, it goes back to, you know, what we were talking about earlier, that if you've learned everything there is to learn, what are you even for, right?
Right.
And the kind of notion of time served superiority is a really, really common fallacy, especially in the occult world. You know, like if you have, you know, enough books written that you can make a throne out of, and you've been in this order for 40 years, or you were studying under, you know, Crowley's nephew's second cousin, once removed dog walker's best mate, then somehow you've got a better claim to not only knowing more, but being better at magic, and sometimes being a better person, which is absolute rubbish.
Mm-hmm.
Absolute rubbish. Terrible people happen all the time at all levels of experience. The thing is that you don't know, you don't know what you don't know. You don't know what bit of information or experience is missing from your practice. And anybody can walk in and have that. Anyone, from day one. And that's why I love running and facilitating these events, because that's where you're likely to bump into that person who has the missing piece, the little bit that snaps everything together for you.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what it is my goal to do. So I do it.
Yay. Running events. I absolutely love events and love going, and just that spending that time in the people with other people that are also interested in magic, and there's something really precious about it. So I meet a lot of people who are nervous about going for the first time, or we get some of our students that come to Star Club, when they first turn up, they're like, I've never worked magic in a group and I'm really nervous about it. And then by the time you've spent half an hour with the other people in the room, you can watch as these new folk slowly relax as they realize this is a place that they belong. Because even if you've got a mix of traditions and a mix of backgrounds, which is often the case, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're all weird.
Yeah.
So if you've spent most of your life feeling like I'm weird, I don't belong anywhere, and I'll go to this new group and I'm not going to belong there either, and then you get there and you're around other weirdos who are all weird because they're into magic. Doesn't matter what the flavor of magic is, we're all weirdos together, and it's this wonderful sense of homecoming.
Yeah, and that's the other thing about doing it in person, right? Is that we know that social media is set up to silo us and create differences and factionalism and the wrong kind of tribalism. It's set up that way because that's how it generates money. Because, you know, as the old saying goes, if you're not paying for it, you're the product, right? So it's our data that's being sold, our engagement, our clicks, our advertising revenue by putting our eyeballs on things. And the angrier you are, or the more fearful you are, the more outraged you are, the more you engage and the more money that is raised in revenue. So within, you know, the esoteric community, that factionalism is still promoted by the algorithm. It doesn't matter whether the government believes in chaos magic. Facebook believes that you can get money by chaos magicians hating Thelemites.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter, you know, whether, you know, the Catholic Church thinks we're all possessed or not. But Reddit will pit, you know, the left-hand path lot against the Druids, and, you know, and it'll promote that kind of content. So actually, if we all turn up at the same event, and you can see that apart from the difference in clothing color choices, which are very obvious, mm-hmm. we're actually the same. We just have different approaches to our spiritual and magical journeys. And that's where the interesting stuff happens. Rather than everybody sitting around and agreeing or disagreeing about the correct interpretation of Atu 16. Like, well, I think you see the way the tower goes like this, and it happens there, and the sweepy bit, and then, but the orange and the black, the orange and the black. Like, no, look at, like, why is it different in that from, you know, the Pamela Colden-Smith Rider-Waite deck? Why is it different in the Guild Tarot? Why is it different in an Oracle deck? Why is it, I know Oracle decks are rubbish, but why are all these things solely the purview of one tiny group? And what do you think you can learn by being in such a tiny group? So, yeah, that's my recommendation. Go out, meet some people. See what happens.
Yeah, I'm loving that. For those not watching on the video, the background that I've got is some local woodlands, and the background that Sef has is like this celestial night sky over the horizon of the earth. And it just sort of sums up that thing of we work really well together. Yeah. Even though we've got these different roots, they are complementary, and actually it's all part of the same thing. The magic is all part of the same, it's all the same work, even if our paths are different.
I think so. Also, I'm not in the main office today, so otherwise you just have the tea station behind me, which is also appropriate, to be fair. Like, where's the one you usually have?
Make a mug emerge from the background. Is that the foxy mug? Yay! Yeah. Mug covered in foxes. That's my favorite one when I go over to visit. Yeah. Whereas I have my tea mug because I'm a professional.
Branding.
Anyway, on which note, so this has been a wonderful conversation, and I didn't even get to ask you about angels, so I might have to, given the celestial background, so I might have to bring that up at another point, maybe have you back in the future. There's a...
You know, I was at a drive-through yesterday because obviously I make really good life choices. And somebody asked me if that was the Doomslayer sword from Doom Eternal.
Is that
that was actually one of the best misreadings of a tattoo I've ever had, because these are all, that's a devotional tattoo to the Archangel Michael with something else Notoria and something from the Grimoire of Armadale and my own sigil, and based on various types of swords that are really important to me. And I was like, you know what? I think the boss would approve of that reading. Sure. Yeah. So we can talk about angels next time, maybe. If all of your listeners don't say, never have this guy back on again. They're rude. Don't like his face.
Well, that's okay. The people that don't like your face can listen on the audio. So, what we've talked about lots of things. We've talked about daily practice. We've talked about like what is the LBRP, like what does it do? You've told us about Babalon, your experience of being in devotion with Babalon. We've talked about like different paths and the importance of coming together, and how magic can turn your life upside down if your life needs turning upside down in order for you to be who you are. And about how those paths can be different, but ultimately we're all weird with a Y. We're all working our way through this wonderful, awe-inspiring place to be that is life. So now what I'd like to ask you is there something that our listeners can go away and do or can do with you now? Have you got a practice to share with them?
Yes. And in the course of the discussion we've had, I've changed my mind about what I thought I'd offered.
Sounds good.
So, as you know, you and I and Hannah and Star Club have worked the Mass of Babalon from the Grimoire of Aleister Crowley, written by Rodney Orpheus. We've worked this many times over the years. It was the ritual that I took to the occult retreat, and it was also the closing ceremony for the International Thelemite Symposium last year. This year we will have a different performance of the Shrine of the Golden Hawk, written by Florence Farr. So, we like to have ritual in our events, right? So I thought I would offer, just as a very, very simple way of contacting Babalon and meditating on it. The ritual itself was written by Rodney using, as an illustrative example of how to write a Eucharistic ritual. It involves wine, the speech of the charioteer, the Daughter of Fortitude from Dean Kelly, and the Song of the Second Aether. So I'm not going to try and get to do all that right now, because it's kind of the ritual equivalent of patting your head and rubbing your tummy. I have to rub my chest instead for the camera, but I can do it. But I'll share it. Do you have it to hand, or do you want me to, if I type it out in the chat, we could say it together a few times, and then people could have it sort of listen and put it on loop?
Which bit?
The Omari tessala.
Yes, I do have it, in fact, to hand. I've been, as you know, I'm working on a performance that weaves the Mass of Babalon in, where is that bit of text that we've worked on, that weaves some of these pieces in the musical version of this. So I have, in fact, I've almost learnt that particular chant. There we go, but I do have it to hand.
Cool. So this is a chant which is basically talking about how wonderful Babalon is and how important various parts of her anatomy are. I will leave that for the discerning listener or watcher to research on their own merits. But ultimately, what we're doing with this is looking to recite the mantra or the chant devotionally to connect with Babalon, to invite that joy of doing one's will, that joy of apprehending and understanding and enacting the reason that we chose to incarnate in these bodies on this planet at this time. Because there's no such thing as the wrong time and the wrong place for a magician. The only thing that can be wrong is your level of preparedness for what is to follow. So we use this mantra, and maybe if you want to say it with me, and we'll give it a couple of minutes, and then if people are really savvy, they can cut it and loop it and use it for their own meditation. So I recommend that you very simply, as Halo has on the video, got a chalice of rose petals or a chalice of wine, light a candle. It can be red, it can be black. If you really want to, be cool and spooky about it, you can get a ruby or obsidian scrying tool. But all you really need to do is allow the sound and join in with the sound. We can probably put it in the description, right, somewhere.
I'll put the words in the description. Now, the problem with us both chanting on a Zoom recording is Zoom will cut in and out.
Right.
So what we could do is take it in turns.
Yeah. Okay.
So you chant it through, and then I'll chant it through.
I'll do it. Why don't we do 7 iterations each?
Okay.
Or what do you want to do 7 between us? What's better?
7 between us, I think. So you start, and we'll alternate. So I'll do 3, and you'll do 4.
Cool. Sounds good. All right. So for those listening at home, the song of the second Aether, and this is dedicated to Babalon and to everybody who wishes to commune with her. Omari, tessala, marax, tessala, dodi, phornepax, amri, radara, poliax, armana, piliu, amri, radara, piliu, son, mari, narya, barbiton, madara, anaphax, sarpedon, andala, hriliu.
Omari, tessala, marax, tessala, dodi, phornepax, amri, radara, poliax, armana, piliu. Amri, radara, piliu, son, mari, narya, barbiton, madara, anaphax, sarpedon, andala, hriliu.
Omari, tessala, marax, tessala, dodi, phornepax, amri, radara, poliax, armana, piliu. Amri, radara, piliu, son, mari, narya, barbiton, madara, anaphax, sarpedon, andala, hriliu.
Omari, tessala, marax, tessala, dodi, phornepax, amri, radara, poliax, armana, piliu. Amri, radara, piliu, son, mari, narya, barbiton, madara, anaphax, sarpedon, andala, hriliu.
Omari, tessala, marax, tessala, dodi, phornepax, amri, radara, poliax, armana, piliu. Amri, radara, piliu, son, mari, narya, barbiton, madara, anaphax, sarpedon, andala, hriliu.
Omari, tessala, marax, tessala, dodi, phornepax, amri, radara, poliax, armana, piliu. Amri, radara, piliu, son, mari, narya, barbiton, madara, anaphax, sarpedon, andala, hriliu.
Omari, tessala, marax, tessala, dodi, phornepax, amri, radara, poliax, armana, piliu. Amri, radara, piliu, son, mari, narya, barbiton, madara, anaphax, sarpedon, andala, hriliu. There we go.
Hail Babalon.
In nomine Babalon.
Kind of just want to sit in silence for a moment, but let's wrap up our call and let people, you can find that and just hit replay on that section if you want, and I will and listen to it and see how you feel. I'll put the words in the caption as well, and you can say it as an offering, as a devotion, as a connection, as a calling to Babalon.
And if you're doing partner work, doing it in that way works really well. You can also break it down into sort of 2 or more sections and have one person speaking one while the other breathes in, and then we're giving the last half as the other person breathes in. That sort of stuff. But yeah, it's very effective in that manner.
Lovely. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that. So what event are you running next, and where can people find you?
Well, I am not hard to find. I'm at visible-college.org. and together we run Star Club, which is at star-club.org. So star-club, visible-college.org. We do a lot of stuff, and we're going to be all over the place, and I can't even think of exactly what we're going to do next. But upcoming on the horizon, which is going to be especially apt for what we've just been talking about, is the Thelemic Symposium, which you can find at visible-college.org/symposium or thelemic-symposium.co.uk, which is a redirect, cheeky redirect. And yeah, tickets are on sale now. We've got the full lineup coming up. That's going to be the 28th of September in Oxford, the home of the original symposium back in the 80s. So I'm very much looking forward to that. Second year running. It's at the Old Fire Station, which is a great venue, even if they are long suffering with our adventures last year. Hopefully we'll be a little bit more tidy for them this year. And yeah, I'm just excited that I've had the opportunity to help renew and reconstitute that event and a bunch of others. Also, I should mention, with my other hat, one of my many other hats on, that the Occult Conference in Glastonbury has just announced the first tranche of speakers. There are still early birds available, which will be until the summer solstice, so there should be a couple of weeks after this comes out, if you want to pick up early birds for the weekend. But that's going to be very cool as well, with all sorts of different intersecting paths having an intersectional discussion. And as I say, very importantly, the pub is going to be brilliant.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
And that's occult-conference.co.uk.
I will put links in the description for folk to follow. But yes, come along and join us and see us in person. I will be at both of those events as well, at the Thelemic Symposium in September and at the Glastonbury Occult Conference next February, which is always one of my highlights of the winter. So,
and where we first met.
Sorry?
And where we first met.
And where we first met, indeed. So it can be a beautiful brewing place for finding and beginning magical collaborations and dear friendships with much healing and much love.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Sef, for joining us. Thank you to everyone who has listened. Go and pick up a cup if you have one, light a candle, take a moment and chant that chant to Babalon and invite her to support you and to be part of your life in finding and manifesting your true will, if you so desire. Until next time, may your path be enchanted. Come and join us in the Enchanted Academy, where we have a community of a whole variety of magical folk and magical paths, where we have conversation that's online but off of social media. Link in the description below, or you can find it at haloquinn.net/T, where you can also find my courses. But more importantly, come and be in community with us, because together we make the world more magical, more weird, more enchanted, and more of a place where we are all our whole willful selves.